Hello again, and welcome to Spotlight. Today we're going to be talking about something that everyone in the town of Ludlow is very interested in, and that's going to be Ludlow Town Meeting and the budget that it's going to be dealing with, plus the elections that's going to be occurring. And as our guest, it's going to be Scott Murphy, the Ludlow Municipal Manager. Scott, welcome again.
Thanks, Ralph.
Now, first of all, let's get this straight about when is town meeting going to occur?
Well, we have the informational meeting the night before, which is March 2nd, and then the town meeting is on March 3rd, and that starts at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Now, let's just discuss some of the major budget items. Now, obviously, these are things that I would consider major, and you probably will have some other thoughts on this. The first thing I'd like to discuss is what's the impact of the closing of the high school on the town budget, specifically transportation?
Okay, well, it has two major impacts on the budget. One is basically the elimination of the municipal transit system. We have 4 buses that will be selling off at the end of the year. We haven't budgeted any funds for municipal transit system, and as you know, we did offer the school district to lease one of our buses for the transportation of Ludlow students, elementary school students. I've recently been informed that they're not going to take advantage of that. I believe they're going to purchase a bus for themselves, but you'd have to ask the school administrators about that if you have any further questions.
They indicated that they're going to be purchasing a bus?
That's what they said. They were not going to take us up on our lease offer. Again, the lease was $1 for a year to help them out, but apparently they have a different way to provide transportation.
You know, this must be the time when $1 leasing is rather popular. I mean, the high school.
Well, that moves us into the next part of your question, I guess, is the school building itself. So at the end of this current school year, the town will purchase for $1, as required by the merger agreement of the school district, the Black River High School building. And the select board decided not to build any revenue into that projected budget. So our budget for approval does not include any projected revenue, just approximately $65,000 of minimal cost to maintain and heat the building for the course of the year.
Okay, now you also, there's $95,000 in an accumulated bus fund.
The capital account, correct. And that was for purchasing and the maintenance of the buses through the course of the years. So the select board's agreed to ask the voters to apply that to reduce the tax burden and sort of apply it against the general tax budget, and then we'll eliminate that capital account.
Okay, well, very good. Now, what is the current status of possible tenants for the building? I know the independent school system was planning on trying to use it.
Right. Well, we have not built any revenue into the budget for that building. Again, like I mentioned a minute ago, the select board decided not to include any projected income for tenants. As you mentioned, the independent school has shown some interest, and there's other nonprofit entities that also have shown interest. But we have not built any revenue into it. So we don't know what's going to happen that way. We're just going to close and secure the building, and then we'll go from there. It's up to the independent school to see if they want to lease some space. But, you know, they've got a lot of hurdles to clear before they get to that point.
Yeah, no, that's true. And also, that's really not a subject for the town meeting right now.
Correct.
Now, just to clarify, does this mean that as far as the select board is concerned, that is the end to the transportation side of Ludlow's funding?
That's correct. The municipal transit system for the town will go away.
Okay, and you will be selling all of the equipment?
That's right, the 4 buses, right.
Okay. Now, going through the budget, I did notice that the ambulance service, which is going to have a net salary increase of around 27.5, and that one of the articles that will be before town meeting is to use $66,000 to support the operation. Now, can you explain the unique operation of the ambulance service vis-a-vis it's being in the budget?
Yes, it's an enterprise fund, which means that it doesn't impact the general fund of the budget. So it's a
Okay.
proprietary fund, and it has, over the years, been funded in that way. Last year, we hired a consulting firm that does emergency services to come in and evaluate the Ludlow ambulance service. They came up with a full, 30, 60-page summary, but they had 64 recommendations in there.
64.
Right, so, and some of them are pretty obvious, but the major impacts are that we have switched to a paid staff now, full-time paid staff, 24/7. We're not relying on the volunteers. Now, the volunteers, as you know, in many of the industry that rely on volunteers, have had a lot of problems getting and training and keeping volunteers now. It's just not the way it was in the past. I know fire departments having the same issue, and all kinds of ambulance services throughout the state are being affected by it. So one of the recommendations was to switch to this full-time paid staff, which we have. But that, of course, costs money, and we have instituted many changes in the ambulance service as recommended by the consulting firm, and we're hoping that that slowly turns the ship around as far as financial services go. But I will have to say that our medical response and medical requirements providing the services to the town has improved. So we had an example recently of a woman that was having a stroke downtown. The staff that was on duty, not on call, responded very quickly and ended up saving her life, the hospital and the doctors told us. So that was one good example of how quickly we can respond by having paid staff.
Okay, well, volunteerism is something that's become a real problem for a number of organizations. You mentioned the fire department and the ambulance service. Is this something that we can see getting more and more, becoming more and more an obvious problem?
It became such an acute problem with our ambulance service that we had to, switch to the paid staffing. It's difficult to attract paid staffing even just by switching to them. And so we're in that process of acquiring good people. But the former method was not working properly, and we just couldn't provide the service that's required by the voters of Ludlow.
Well, it's understandable, particularly, it seems like everyone now has got several jobs.
It's difficult, sure.
Now, I notice the highway department is up 15%. What were the reasons for that increase?
Okay, so basically, we took a part-time staffer that was on the highway. We had allotted for a part-time staffer that had been in the budget of the highway in the years past, and we've made that a full-time position now. Okay. And basically, we took partial position with the busing, the transit, and slid it over into the highway position. So we're hopeful that the person that fills that role will help us with maintenance costs. For instance, they can repair the highway equipment naturally, but also the ambulance vehicles and the police department vehicles.
Oh.
So there's less cost to the public, to the town, to send these vehicles out for repairs.
Oh, good. Okay. Now, Parks and Recreation supports F, and this percentage just struck me. It's 362% increase in the support staff. What is that all about?
That's a misnomer, so I can easily explain that. What we did was rearrange some of the line items, so it it wasn't showing like us covering the summer programs and stuff. So we moved items from one line item and combined it into another. So
Okay.
what that means is this year we have projected approximately 34,000 in staffing for the upcoming budget, whereas last year the same expenses were a total of 54,000. So that's a decrease of approximately 37%.
Okay, well, now I also understand that the West Hill project is well underway, and I assume that that is included in the budget.
That's right. We've done a lot of work up at West Hill, and it's really starting to pay off. We've had a lot of recreational activities up there this past summer, and the Recreation Committee is working diligently to put together some more activities up there. Some of the things we're working on, and we did some of this work in conjunction with Vail and Okemo as part of their Epic Promise program, where they had their staff come down for a day and work on all these projects, and we had tons of activity up there, and it was great work. It allowed us to get a lot of things done. So some of the things that we have done is we've improved the interior of that building up there. We worked on the exterior siding, exterior windows, some roofing, and some doors. And in addition to the building itself, we've fixed up the trails over there and built small bridges footbridges over the streams. So that, in addition to working on the pavilion, which we've got scheduled for this spring, will help facilitate that area and make it more active. And one of the benefits to that, as we've talked about in the past, is the more activity that's up there, the less geese that are there and their byproducts. So
I understand that they have actually sort of, because of the busyness, they've sort of driven the geese out.
And that's what we were told would happen. So last summer, we had the after-school summer program up there. They had 60, 70 kids up there every day. All summer. They had a great summer for that. It was super to see so many kids active, running around, riding their bikes, just playing, having fun up there. And all that activity helped drive the geese away. Now, we're hoping to establish a dog park, which is in this budget too, but there's still some fundraising to do by the dog park committee. So if anybody's out there and interested in a dog park, please look for an opportunity to help contribute towards that. But that would also help the activity up there and help keep the geese away too.
Now, if somebody did want to contribute, say, to the dog park, how would they go about doing that?
They can go on to two ways. One, they can go on the town's website, or they can go on to the Parks and Recreation website, and that will direct them to the dog park committee.
Okay, wonderful. Now, one of the things that I noticed in terms of the articles is, and this is the article that will be discussed on the Monday night town meeting, a petition, a citizen's petition to, I believe the wording is to require all public questions to be decided by Australian ballot. Now, just thinking about this very, very quickly, if you were to do that, then what would be the purpose of town meeting?
Well, you're right, and that's why in 1989, when this same question came up, that the voters voted it down. But a petition has been filed, like you said, and so the question will be asked at town meeting. So what it means is, if that was to pass, we would hold all public votes by Australian ballot. Basically, it would eliminate town meeting day because you'd have an informational meeting within 10 days prior to the town meeting, and then you just go in and collect your ballot and go down through the questions that way.
Okay, now, are there any state statutes or regulations that impact this question?
Yes, there's very specific state statutes on this. So apparently over the years, by mistake, we had kind of switched back and forth depending on the controversy of a question that had come up, and had done some through Australian ballot. And that was incorrect. So going forward, we have to, right now as it stands, all our public votes will be held from the floor, town meeting, unless this petition vote passes at town meeting, this town meeting.
Okay, now, just to clarify this, we've had questions that arose sometimes via citizens petition, other times initiated by the select board. But sometimes the vote was held in a town meeting environment, and other times it was held Australian ballot. Does that mean that those that were held on Australian ballot are invalid now?
No, we did talk with the town attorney on that, and he did give us a summary of this that I presented to the select board. And basically it says, after a certain period of time, it's sealed, it's done.
Oh, okay.
So we're all set as far as that goes in past questions. Just going forward, it's how do the voters of Ludlow want to have their public votes?
Okay. Now, are there any other subjects on the budget you think you'd like to bring forward now to discuss?
I don't have anything that jumps to the top of my head. I do want to say it's a fair and responsible budget. The select board worked very hard to prepare this, along with myself and the staff. We ended up getting the budget down to an actual decrease in the amount to be raised in taxes of approximately $35,000, which is just under 1%. So that's good news for everyone.
It's a 1% decrease?
Decrease, correct, yeah.
My.
Yeah.
No, can you guarantee that this is going to happen every year?
Absolutely not. No, but anyways, it was a lot of hard work to get to that point, and we're very glad to get to that level, and hopefully, the voters will see that and approve the budget.
Okay. Now, there was a question about the adoption of a local option tax that the select board was considering. What is the status of that now?
Okay, so at the last opportunity to warn the questions, the article questions, the select board decided to withdraw that question at this particular time, with the idea that they would possibly bring it forward again in the near future. And that was primarily because of this question about how to vote, public votes.
Okay.
And so once that's decided clearly at town meeting, either Australian ballot or from the floor, town meeting style, then they'll feel more comfortable going forward with this question. But as we've discussed, and we need to keep this fire going if people are concerned about this, and we would have more informational meetings in the upcoming year about it to give the public a chance to comment on it. Since this was first talked about in 2004, Ludlow would have received, if we had all four of the sales, meals, alcohol, and rooms in place, approximately $7.5 million to offset, whatever the select board chose to do and the public chose to do.
Okay, now, on an annualized basis, what would that be?
The latest numbers, a little over 600,000.
Well, that's what percentage of the budget?
A good share. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. Now, as I recall, you've already alluded to this, but the local option tax is really broken down into four different categories. And I probably won't remember them all, but the meals, drinks, lodging, and general sales, isn't it?
Correct, yeah. Sales, meals, alcohol, and rooms, right.
Okay. And the town could ostensibly decide which ones it wanted.
Yes, they could pick and choose between that. I can just give you one more, for instance, on that. The town of Williston approved initially, this was about 15 to 20 years ago, initially turned that local option tax question down, the voters did, but then reconsidered it at the next opportunity and approved it. And their money is used strictly against the general fund. And they're currently receiving and applying $3.1 million against their budget now, which is 30% of their budget.
30%? All right. That is a sizable number.
It is. I mean, ours wouldn't be that large, of course. Williston is a lot larger town, city. So.
Okay, now, in addition to the budget and the articles that will be considered at town meeting, of course, we do have, well, actually, the election is part of the articles. There'll be the election for all the town offices, and I believe we do have some contested seats for the select board.
Correct. There's two people running for one 3-year seat, and there's 3 people running for 2 1-year seats.
Okay. And then the constable, who I think this is the first time I can ever remember there being a contest for the constable. But
Right.
now, one of course, something that everyone's going to be terribly interested in, especially if they watch the news, is going to be the presidential primary. And the way it works here, as I recall, is you declare which party you would like to vote on in the primary. And then you can vote on the candidates in that party who have filed. I believe, what do they do, file with the Secretary of State?
Yes. Right.
Now, there's also going to be the question of the Ludlow Mount Holly Unified Union School Board budget, which is $7,288,000. And just for information purposes, this is based on a per pupil cost estimate of $18,755 per student. I believe that's per equalized student, and someday someone will explain to me what an equalized student is. There's also going to be the River Valley Technical Center, who has a budget of $2,984,000. And, of course, Black River Union High School has always contributed to that, sending students to Springfield. And there may be something in the future with the independent school if that takes off. Now, what else would you like to say about the budget? Are there any other items that you think people would be concerned about?
One that I've heard about recently is the possible discussion, or at least having a discussion of a possible merger between the village and the town. A lot of our infrastructure needs are in the village, and the village is basically handicapped or hampered by the lack of funding in the village, whereas if it was a combined village and town, we would be able to do more, make more of an impact on the infrastructure needs. And, you know, I've talked briefly with the village trustees about that, and there's some discussion, some willingness to discuss that with the select board. So I'm hoping that we can bring the groups together and have a discussion about that in the upcoming year.
Okay, well, that should be very interesting. Now, if anyone has any questions, about the budget, how would they get answers, prior to a town meeting?
Well, they can go on the town website and look at the budget there. That's all laid out there. And then if they had questions, they could call the town office, or they could send or call me directly also, or send me an email question. I'd respond quickly.
Okay, wonderful. So again, the town meeting is going to be on what dates and time?
March 2nd, the informational meeting. Let me just make sure I get it right here. So March 3rd, Tuesday, March 3rd, it will be the town meeting, and the public informational meeting will be March 2nd, Monday.
Okay, well, the informational meeting is actually when you vote on the town budget.
Oh, correct, yeah.
Okay, so,
The Australian ballot questions are the Tuesday months, so.
now that'll be voted on at town meeting, so it'll be a town meeting vote that decides how we continue voting.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much, and I know that all the people involved, not just the select board and yourself, but the various departments in town, the town have worked hard to put this together.
They did, thank you,
And
Ralph.
I hope everyone gets out to vote and to come to town meeting. And that'll be a wrap for now, and we'll see you sometime in the future.